In this episode, we speak with Tianyi Jiang, or TJ, CEO and co-founder of AvePoint, an independent software vendor of SaaS solutions to migrate, manage, and protect data. More than 17,000 customers trust AvePoint's Confidence platform to optimize their SaaS operations and secure collaboration. AvePoint's SaaS solutions are also available to managed service providers via more than 100 cloud marketplaces. TJ co-founded AvePoint in 2001 and has served as the company's CEO since 2005. He was recently named a top 50 SaaS CEO of 2023 by the Software Report. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow.
RJ Lumba is the managing partner of GrowthCap and the executive chairman of Market Insight Media. He is the host of Growth Investor, a podcast featuring today's best investors, executives, and founders. In the minutes ahead, we'll uncover insights and strategies for accelerating growth and succeeding in business.
TJ, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Thank you, RJ, for having us on your show.
So very excited to talk about your journey building the company, AvePoint. Tell us the scope of the company. How big is it? Where is it located? Where are all of its clients?
Yeah, RJ, AvePoint has been a company for 22 years. We're quite global today. We started our humble beginnings in the public library in Somerset, New Jersey. Our global headquarters in Jersey City, just on the waterfront across the Hudson from downtown Manhattan. And we also have an international dev center in Singapore. And globally, we are in 18 countries. Our revenue spread is 45% of our business is North America. And the other 55% is evenly split between Western Europe and tier one B2B SaaS markets, software markets in APAC, which is Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea. And Western Europe, of course, it's big markets, Germany, Nordics, Benelux, UK, France, and Southern Europe. So yeah, it's a 2,400 people organization today. And we service large, medium, and small customers as well now. Traditionally, 60% of our business is regulated industry. So that's government, that's banks, that's manufacturing, enterprises, and industries that really care about the security and safety of their data. Because at AvePoint today, we're the largest SaaS data management and data governance and security player in the Microsoft Cloud ecosystem. But today, because we're cloud, we're SaaS, we're subscription, there's no maintenance, there's no very easy onboarding. We now have many small to medium business customers also. Now it's 20% of our recurring business is actually small business with less than 500 employees. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but we're growing across geographies as well as industries today.
And so I noticed the strong tie to Microsoft, but you create your own solutions. So can you describe that kind of dynamic? Are you independent or do you need to operate within the Microsoft cloud?
Yeah, the lingo is independent software vendor. So we sit on top of Microsoft Cloud. We provide a layer of data orchestration, what we call Confidence platform, data management platform. We don't resell anyone's software. We just sell our own software as a subscription. That's why, our subscription, which is 85% of our revenue, it's a 80 plus margin business. And then the other 15%, which we're reducing down to 10%, is our services business. Because as you can imagine, with customers like State Department, IRS, Ministry of Defense in Japan, we do have some services that's in the enterprise segment, that's high touch. That also allow us to actually build new IP and better service the large enterprise customer and generate net new products. So it's a SaaS solution that sits on top of Microsoft Azure and help customers with their data management essentially needs around Microsoft Cloud. Having said that, RJ, we are today expanded into multi-cloud. So we do have significant revenue in Salesforce Cloud to help folks manage data there, as well as Google, so Google Docs specifically, and to help, again, same use cases, your data lifecycle, rights management, and of course, backup as a service and data integration. Now we're also in support of AWS. So our customers are multi-cloud. So we obviously become a strategic partner to our customers when it comes to cloud-based data management and security and governance. We have to support multi-cloud.
Excellent. I'd like to touch on your background and go actually towards the beginning, I noticed it was that Walt Whitman High School that you went to was that in Maryland?
Yes, that is in Maryland, Bethesda, Maryland.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with that area. And then you go on to, and we share an alma mater in Cornell University. How did you go
Oh,
about
cool.
choosing Cornell? Because you spent a lot of time there.
What year did you graduate, RJ?
Well, I was in the business program, so I didn't go there
Okay,
for
Johnson School.
undergrad. Yes.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So I was a first generation immigrant kid. My parents are exchange scientists. They first job coming to America, they landed at NIH, National Institute of Health, for my mother, and my father worked at US UHS, which is essentially the only medical school and research facility for the all three armed forces in US. So we live in Bethesda, and Bethesda has one of the best public school in America. So I grew up there, made really great friends whom I still stay in touch with. Very international neighborhood. A lot of the diplomatic corps from different countries live there. So as English as a second language, it's all like mini United Nations. It was actually a great fun. I went to Cornell because I really liked math and also computer. So I was part of the computer club, math club, the typical Asian kid story. I did do wrestling and play saxophone. So that kind of balanced out a little bit. And I went to Cornell Engineering as an international student. And of course, quickly, like second year, I became a US citizen. And while I was in sophomore in college, I studied engineering, electrical computer engineering, and I did an MEng as well, Master of Engineering. Luckily, I took all the AP classes in high school. So I get to skip some years while I was at Cornell. So I finished the whole 5-year program in 3.5 years and then got to work. Went to Lucent Bell Labs as my first job in New Jersey, and then quickly went over to Wall Street and developed high frequency trading systems at the Deutsche Bank and then Lehman Brothers.
And it wasn't long before you decided to return to academia with NYU and pursuing the PhD program there.
Yeah. So when I first went to Wall Street, I thought, I made it, right? Like going from speaking no English and I had a culture shock when I was age 11 to now working in World Trade Center. I really feeling a little smug. And then, of course, 9/11 happened. My office is 40th floor of World Trade Center 1. Luckily, everyone on my floor survived that day. But for me, personally, it was an event that really shook me to the core to say, hey, it's not good enough just to stay safe, to play safe, to make great money. But life is too unpredictable. Got to go pursue your passion. So I went back to NYU first at the Sloan program to do an MBA. And then after 1 year, I decided to go for full-on PhD program in data mining, machine learning. And of course, everything happened for a reason, RJ. So they say.
Mm-hmm.
So now, big data became a thing in 2010. Of course, now Gen AI. All businesses are racing to build their proprietary model. So the sophistication and management and the cleanliness of your enterprise data, it's even more important. So we're really at the midst of all the action happening in the enterprise space when it comes to data modeling, building better proprietary business models for businesses to scale, leveraging latest in Gen AI. So yeah, all those things started from going back to academia and pursue my passion for technology.
Well, the other interesting point is that you eventually go on to become an entrepreneur. And I'm not sure if that's a typical path from PhD. I mean, it happens. And actually, the PhDs end up being some of the best entrepreneurs. But tell us about then that decision. And was it more difficult because maybe you had a certain familial culture where people would go into other professions versus entrepreneurship?
Firstly, I went to a business school and got a PhD there. So definition of business schools, it's very entrepreneurial. There are many professors in my department that started many startups, especially in machine learning, AI. So it's you're living that kind of culture. Of course, it's always that publish or perish type of mentality as well. You need to have enough publications to one graduate with a doctorate program and to get a good professorship to work towards your tenure track. That's most of my kind of classmates and cohorts. For me, while I was in grad school, even in business school time, my really good friends from Lucent Bell Labs, Kai Gong, who I became very good friends with, he started this company called AvePoint in the Somerset, New Jersey Public Library. And he started in 2001 when Lucent Bell Labs kind of became Alcatel Lucent and laid off a lot of people, went from the most commonly held stock in America to something that's quite different. So Kai's 12 year my senior, and he felt like he doesn't want to just be a little cog in the massive wheel of machinery of corporate life. And he used to say, when you get laid off like that in difficult times, you don't even know how you died. Decision come from high above. So at that point, he really wanted to try his own and he got me to join him. For me, I was in business school. Besides coursework, obviously I was surrounded by this kind of entrepreneurial fervor, if you will. So for me, it's everything's new, it's learning. So yeah, I did that. That wasn't the hardest decision for me to make to join the entrepreneurship. The hardest decision for me was actually leaving Wall Street to go into grad school in the first place, because you go from, a Wall Street high frequency trader salary, which is quite nice, to a stipend for a PhD student living in New York City. So below poverty line type of kind of income level. So yeah, so that was the hardest decision. So actually jumping into entrepreneurship and doing business after I made the graduate full-time decision, it wasn't so difficult. It was actually quite challenging. And I was always learning new things.
Now, fast forward decades later, you're in a very nice position, managing a big company that's growing nicely. What's the biggest challenge you face today in scaling the company?
RJ, we always say in technology, I love technology. We live and breathe software, and we say a year is eternity. Just look at the pace of change, right? The level of disruption. And if you don't stay agile and stay, leaning forward, invested into customers' pain points and constantly innovate, you will be irrelevant very, very quickly. So that's actually why we love technology. And that also at the same time keep us always on our toes. So we actually made this transition. Very few, 22-year software company that could say honestly that this is their most exciting part of their evolution trajectory. Most software companies getting to that age become quite out of date, ossified, if you will. For us, we are in a really, really good spot. We were able to pivot successfully first into cloud, and then of course now into Gen AI, and this global expansion, this also expanding our essentially segmentation coverage from just large enterprise to now SMB as well, fast moving through channel that resulted in highly scalable self-sufficiency. So those are constant challenges that we evolve to scale the business. Like your question, the biggest challenge has never changed since day one. It's actually people management, how to attract, retain talent, and how to motivate talent to be part of the overall team that will roll forward at the same direction. I always say, RJ, my only regret building the company to where it is today is that we didn't go public earlier. We could have gone public actually 10 years earlier because we went through 9 years of exponential growth. The being public company forces that focus for the entire company. Thereby, it's just no longer a board level conversation if you miss numbers or didn't do as well as you projected and planned for. But the entire company gets a report card every 3 months. So everyone, including line managers across the world, see how the market grades you every 3 months. So that creates that focus. So that was very difficult in the beginning, but now 2 years in, we have really good cadence. We're able to focus and scale the business. That's the external factor that keeps us really disciplined. So all these things together, it's part of the scaling of the business. It's always a challenge, but as a public company, your cost of capital, it's more efficient. You're also, as your stock do well because the market recognizes you for what you do, that also becomes a very, very good platform to attract additional talent. So it's a successful virtuous cycle now we're in.
It's a really interesting point that you think you could have or you should have gone public earlier to enforce that discipline. Some private companies purposely decide to stay private longer because they feel like the quarterly pressure is undue pressure and that it doesn't really set up the company to build long term and give the company enough time as opposed to kind of trying to always meet the quarterly objectives. But so you bring up a really interesting point. How do you kind of balance the two of just not getting too caught up in just quarterly, but also focusing on the long-term vision?
Absolutely, RJ. You have to have that foundation for predictability, a strong leadership, and that allow you to make sure that you execute as per plan. At the same time, though, as a tech company, you always have to look forward to what the major disruptions are, where the puck is going, where the customers are looking forward to, and lean into that disruption. So you have to balance that long-term thinking, continue to invest, and of course, the immediate execution of the business. So for us, the way we balance it, we do have a large R&D team, and we are making that even bigger. So unlike most people saying, hey, with Gen AI, GitHub Copilot, you don't need as many developers. In fact, we're going the other way. we're going to go from 1,300 developers to 4,000 developers in the next 3 years to leverage technology to scale them up to be more efficient, to develop more capabilities and broadening our offering. So that's one way to stay ahead of the game, right? To invest into R&D. And you see our financials today compared to other companies, our spend on R&D is not as great. It's only 12% revenue, and we want to go to 15% revenue as the company continue to grow very nicely on the recurring side. Of course, on the execution side, it's really sales and marketing and biz dev. And that's really focused on execution. And we're able to achieve even more predictability and scalability through investment into channel in the last 3 years, especially in the SMB segment where we created this vertical focused on MSPs, managed service providers, who are basically IT for hundreds and thousands of small businesses behind them. So that allow us to scale and become sticky in the SMB segment, in addition to our traditional strong segment, which is large enterprise and public sector. So yeah, you're right on the money, RJ, that it did take us many years to build a very solid foundation. So we have execution rigor. At the same time, we continue to invest into the future to make sure that we are future ready.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to go back to the people point you made and how that's always kind of a little bit of a challenge getting that right. Did you find that you were more of a natural dealing with people and kind of know how to set up a good culture and a good system? Or was that something you brought in kind of other folks to help along those lines?
We obviously have senior people that we brought in to help continue to strengthen the global team. For example, currently our CEO and Chief People Officer came from a very large public company organization, Stuart Robertson. And at the same time, though, I was very, very fortunate that my co-founder, Kai Gong, who's the executive chairman of the company now, is the person who really, we complement each other very well. So I have always been the business focused, strategy focused, external facing person, whereas Kai is always being the people management and people skilling and operations execution focused person. So we really complement each other all these years. And it's a rare thing, I start to realize, because it's very, very hard for a single individual to have all the skill set. Just like you said, right? You know how to really do people management at the same time, be able to always go out there and present the vision and in front of the investors and talking to customers. And it is oftentimes a very difficult skill set for one individual to have. So I'm very lucky that from the beginning, I had a fantastic partner and we complement each other's strength.
Mm-hmm. The other point I wanted to make was it seems like your organization is very global. We touched on that at the beginning. Is it partially because your background, you're an international person by nature, and that's enabled you both to scale the company internationally, internally, as well as with your customers? Did that play a role?
Yeah, there's many factors. I think if you look at our senior leadership, most of us are first generation immigrants in America. So our chief strategy officer is Mary Carvajal. He's from Colombia, and he also came here very, very young. And our CTO, right, Wei Chen, is similar to my background, and a number of other folks. But the other major driver for us to be international was, at the time, we were very focused on large enterprise and government. And the platform we really made a mark was in this very large enterprise content management, enterprise heavy thing called SharePoint that Microsoft made, which is very conducive to large enterprise operations. So to handle large enterprise, it has to be highly engaging, what we call white glove service. You have to be in person. And that's how we actually spread to 18 countries, because you have to do that level of engagement to overcome the barrier to entry in the large enterprise, in the government agencies. For example, in Singapore, 90% of our business is government. And yeah, so you establish that credibility. The barrier to entry is very high, but once you are viewed as a trusted advisor, trusted partner, strategic investment partner, then it's a highly resilient segment to continue to grow with a customer. So those are factors that made us, not only our background is quite international, and also our business at the time forced us to be very, very international.
And your decision to be based in New Jersey, I believe that's probably from the Lucent roots, and you probably knew folks here. Is New Jersey still your predominant place of work? You have most folks here?
So Jersey City is our global headquarters. And last year, we also made Singapore our international headquarters. We have a fantastic relationship with government in Singapore. Temasek is now our largest institutional investor. And we just launched the R&D center in Singapore last year as well. So we have multiple center of best practice. The other one's Japan, Tokyo, as well as in Munich, Germany. And we also even have products that have this genesis and IP in Australia. So we really are a big believer of a global kind of footprint and global IP innovation, because we have to stay close to our customers. And we know that as an enterprise software company for the last 2 decades plus, you don't generate innovation by sitting in the ivory tower of your global headquarters, right? You generate innovation by, stay in the trenches, in the front line, in markets with customers, and you see where things develop. For example, in Japan, we have fantastic, what we call GovTech platform that services the Japanese government very well in the commercial cloud context. In Australia, we started this cloud records platform that we recently infused with Gen AI to actually reach 20x efficiency for our Australia government customers. And then in Germany, we stay very close to the car manufacturing segmentation. So Volkswagen is a very large customer of ours. There we actually do board level meeting management, record management solutions there. So yeah, so there's innovation across the board. Of course, the US is where we started. The bulk of our confidence platform solution come from there. But we also have a number of great solutions we generated out of Arlington, Virginia, which is head of our public sector business. And public sector has its unique challenges and requirements. So some of the biggest government agencies like IRS, State Department are great customers for decade plus. So those are the ways for us to really stay connected with our customers across the world and across industries.
Got it. I do have two final questions, but before I head into those two final questions, what strikes me is that you seem like someone who has a big vision, and it plays out in kind of your ability to go global and also sell to the biggest governments and companies and organizations. Did you always think big as you were scaling the company? We want to do bigger and better things. Was it an incremental approach, or did you always think from decades ago, we're going to build this to a very big company?
RJ, that's a great question. Even in the early days, I always tell my guys that we have to shoot for the moon, because if you don't get to the moon, you land on the roof. If you shoot for the roof, you go nowhere, right? So we always want to shoot for much higher trajectory than we currently are. But at the same time, though, as a data miner and machine learner at heart, we know that there is no globally optimal solution. It's really incrementally getting to a place. So it's about setting waypoints, mile markers. In the internal terminology at AvePoint is called reasonably ambitious. So it's reasonable. It's not unreasonable mile marker, but it's also ambitious, right? So that's how we incrementally get better. So you set up these 5-year big goals, but then every year you have concrete goals to get us incrementally closer to how we think about our strategy. Of course, now as a public company with no debt and cash generating, great balance sheet, we're in a better position than ever before. We acquired 4 companies last year. We haven't acquired any company this year because the climate is such that there could be fantastic assets up for grabs in the next 6 months. We're continuing in a high interest rate environment. So it's good to save the powder to go to work later. At the same time, we're also doing stock buybacks to create shareholder value. So we have a lot more in our arsenal, if you will, to continue to grow the platform and scale it in a bigger way. But ultimately, yeah, as an entrepreneur, founder entrepreneur, you have to think a few years ahead, not happy with the status quo. By the same time, though, actual execution, you have to do it incrementally.
Excellent. We have two final questions. First off, I'd like to congratulate you on being named the top 50 SaaS CEO of 2023. It's a great accomplishment. The other thing I wanted to touch on is, the name of the podcast is Growth Investor. You did have very notable, highly reputable growth investors along the way in Goldman and Sixth Street. Maybe if you could just touch on that a little bit. How was it working with those institutions? How do they provide value to the organization? And then we'll do the two final questions.
RJ, that's a great question. I'm always a bit of a stickler to a brand. I think brand is very important. Not only are we ourselves a brand in terms of enterprise customer segmentation and making sure that we have truly enterprise grade solutions and be viewed as a strategic partner. When we pick partners that help us, from our Series A with Summit partners, they're great, fantastic early stage investors based out of Boston. We learn a lot from them, their operation playbook, how to scale as a software company. And then, of course, Goldman merchant banking, when we got through the subscription conversion, the not only a technology conversion, but also an economic conversion for the business to Sixth Street, pretty much shortly after they invested, we went public, right? We were going down both the traditional route as well, checked out the SPAC route. We ended up taking the SPAC route. It was very expedient at the time because of the uncertainty of that climate in October 2020, right? Before election results, before vaccines were available, and we had zero redemption. Of course, now with Temasek as our biggest institutional investor, we continue to have fantastic, sophisticated support, long-term support that allow us to continue to build our investor education, IR function, to pick up more analyst coverage, to pick up more awareness in different parts of the world, not just in North America, but now also Asia and soon in Europe. So yeah, I think picking the right partner is very important. It is a partnership after all, right? Even though oftentimes it's a 5-year partnership, but it is a strong 5-year partnership where we learn a lot through that process. We are able to elevate our own conditions as well our discipline through that exercise. So every stage of the way, I would say our new partners have different value to add as we continue to grow. There's some natural thresholds in a company's evolution. When you do your first million, then 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, 100, 200, right? We're just shy of 300 this year. There's natural thresholds where you have these scaling challenges. So this is where a good partner in the boardroom, and that also has a fantastic network of portfolio company CEOs that you can talk to that have gone through that process. Mm-hmm. It's critically important.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay. Final 2 questions. One is, could you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
Yeah, there are many. I would say it's actually my father. He went through quite a bit of hardship. So his family used to be one of the largest landowners in Northeast China, and everything was taken away when New China was formed. He had nothing but his own academic accomplishment to get him into a really good school, which is Beijing Medical University. And then he became the first batch of exchange scientists to come to America. So he will always say, trust nothing except the knowledge in your own head. That's the only thing that you can keep to yourself and no one can take away. And he went through multiple iterations from Cultural Revolution to then go to America of first time starting. He even worked in coal mines after college, right? And in China, coal mine at the time is notoriously challenging, right? You go down, chances are you don't come back up. So yeah, those are the type of difficulties that he went through, and he's still a lifelong learner. He's 81 years old. He's still learning. He's still doing research. Puts me to shame. I always feel lazy when I take a vacation compared to him. Yeah. So when you have a father like that, you have to keep working and try to better yourself.
Excellent. Last question. Can you tell us about a charity cause or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Yeah. So a couple of things. We have education spinoff called MaivenPoint that's focused on edtech. So education is dear to my heart. I believe the only value we can give to the next generation is actually not money, it's education. It's a very good education so that they can then also have enough knowledge and know-how in their head that no one can take away and create value. So yeah, this whole edtech business, in less than 3 years, we went from nobody in that industry to now top 3 edtech partner for Microsoft globally. So that's doing really, really well. And then I also started a fellowship at Cornell. So Cornell is my alma mater, where I'm actually helping students to do fellowships around the world during the summers. So sponsoring 20 students to start, and we're looking to expand the program to over 50. So those are the type of investments I think is worthwhile to help young people to gain actually real world work experience around the world, not just in US, in tech startups where you can learn a lot more versus, much bigger companies where your role could be very, very narrow and very siloed. So I think those are the type of things that I will continue to invest more effort into. It's really all around education, how to better empower younger generation to have a better work experience education, and also how to establish a company that then provide value to not only higher ed, also to corporate learning development, as well as adult continuous education, continuous learning. That's the MaivenPoint charter. So those things are very important to me.
Fantastic. Well, TJ, I want to thank you again for taking the time. This has been a wonderful conversation. I know our audience will find this very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. It's been a pleasure talking to you.